these people that are kind of grown and built in the Beltway, they're like, oh, that voter can't exist. Most voters are very nuanced. The idea that I'm just going to go quietly into the night and let 24 million Americans have their health insurance raised overnight, it's not going to happen.
You spend a lot of time changing diapers.
Yep.
You took parental leave.
Yeah, I did.
Why was that important for you to do? Hi, welcome back to My Body, My Pod, the Reproductive Freedom for All podcast. And we are so excited to have our very good friend, U.S. Senator Ruben Gallego, with us today.
Hi, hola, hola.
I talk about you all the time, and we're going to learn a little bit more about why I do it. But you've got really compelling life story. You're one of 2 U.S. senators with newborns in the U.S. Senate. So I think your life story, your work, and your longtime championship of abortion rights and reproductive freedom make you really ideal to be our second guest on this
Who's
podcast.
number 1?
It was J.B. Pritzker, Governor
All
Pritzker.
right.
So,
Counts. Yeah.
We got 2 solid male leaders to start this conversation. So I'm going to jump right in because I know you, as a father, you actually have to go pick up your kid after this.
That's right.
So we got to keep it moving.
Keep it rolling, yep.
So can you talk a little bit about your mom and how you grew up and how that's really affected the way you approach this work as a dad and as a legislator who cares a lot about reproductive freedom? I'm getting right into it.
Well, look, my mom was just an absolute rock and a role model, right? My father just basically started stepping out of the picture around 7th grade. So they separated. He was just not a great father even before that, right? He was abusive, mentally, physically abusive, to me, to my mother. She, decided that she needed to make sure that, she raised good kids.
Yeah.
And so she went and rented a very small apartment, but it was stable, and she was at work raising me and my 3 sisters, and she was a really good role model of what to do right, very resilient, always telling us to work harder and believing in ourselves, right? And even understanding that maybe she didn't understand everything, but she always believed in us. Like I remember at one point, I knew in order for me to get into some good colleges, I needed to take a certain amount of classes. And there's just one class that for some reason they recommended me, they wanted me to do English honors instead of English AP, right? It sounds like very small, but in order for you to get into some of these Ivies, which I wanted to go to Ivy.
Did.
I did. I needed to make sure I stayed on track. And I went and my counselor's like, well, you didn't hit some mark in 8th grade or something like that. I'm like, what that? Like that? I'm not in 8th grade anymore. We're, sophomore year. And I realized that there was something in the Illinois high school course book or guidebook for students that said your parents can always opt you into any class, provided you're not, in one of the special needs program or anything like that, or special needs student. And so I went and told my mom, and I think she kind of got it, but me did not get it in general. But she went right to the school and said, put my kid in that AP English class, and that helped keep me on track. And if it wasn't for her just absolutely believing in me and knowing that I had a goal and a plan, and she knew that I needed her backup, I don't think I would have been there. And she, I'm a success, but so are my sisters. They're all very successful women, multiple, I'm the one I think that doesn't have anything beyond a bachelor's degree, so
you're the underachiever.
I'm the underachiever. Yeah, exactly. And then even my mom, when, after she all said was done, she went and got her college degree too.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's a great role model for strong Latina women.
So I feel like growing up with 3 sisters and a strong, independent feminist, can I say?
Yeah.
Mom really likely shaped the way you think about reproductive freedom. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, so one of the things that, unfortunately, maybe fortunate for my sisters too, though, is that since they didn't have a father, I had to kind of step in and be kind of a father figure at a younger age. And when you have especially younger sisters, you have to take care of them. And what does that mean? Is like when you go grocery shopping.
So all 3 were younger than you?
2 of them were younger. One was 1 year younger. Laura is older than me. But when you go grocery shopping, and it's if tampons are on the list, you're getting tampons, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're a 16, 17-year-old boy, and you have to understand why that is, and you can't be afraid to have conversations with, your sisters about that. And if you start having those conversations early on, you start having a deep appreciation about, life general, women's anatomy, like their literal ability to have independence, if they have control over their bodies, and just you had to have a lot of those frank conversations as a father figure, and this is at a very young age, but like that does mold you. You start looking at the world in a very, very different way.
That's incredible. I didn't know that part of your story. My father actually, similar to you, had 3 younger sisters, so he helped kind of raise as a teen.
Yep.
And we used to always joke like I was the 4th daughter. But that does give you a lot more understanding about anatomy and reproductive health.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
The average U.S. senator, no insult to any of your
colleagues. No, there's a lot of dudes that don't know jack.
Right.
It's quite amazing. Even the simple stuff they need toilet paper no matter what happens.
And you're a hands-on.
That's crazy.
Well, and you're a hands-on dad. So I know you spend a lot of time changing diapers.
Yep.
You took parental leave.
Yeah, I did.
Why was that important for you to do?
Well, for one, to be supportive of my wife.
Right.
Because it is hard no matter what. And even if you are in a very good position like we are, right, where we make good salaries, we have fairly flexible work environments, it's still really physically, emotionally draining for the first couple months for the woman in this case. I mean, for guys, it's you can or can, but you're never going to get hit as hard as, your wife is. And the physical side, but emotionally, it's also hard, right? So for them and for you to be there and be emotionally available and supportive, it's really important. For me, it's also very key, I think, in terms of bonding. I from Michael to Isla to Cooper, the more time I spent with them, the sooner and the longest time I spent with them, the more bond you get. And I think people don't want to admit this, but for men, our bond is very separate from when it comes to moms, right? We have to build it because we didn't grow the baby inside us, but the way to build it is by having kind of that skin to skin contact to start, but then also just being able to hold them, talk to them, and it's enriching. It's so interesting to see how the kids are. Michael and Cooper are the same way in terms of how they react to smiles and to stimulus, if you're tickling or something like that. And then my daughter Isla was just totally polar opposite. I could not get a smile out of her to save my life. And I thought my daughter hated me for the first year. And, now she's 2 and she's just she has me wrapped around her finger. She could smile and tell me anything and says, Daddy, and she gets it. But every kid's different, and you really get to know that in that first couple months.
Well, I remember your daughter beginning to walk in the 2024 election.
Mm-hmm.
So what a way to make her formative statement. She was very present everywhere you went. And I want to shift to talk about that election because this is why I talk about you so much for so many reasons.
Yeah.
But we talk about Arizona and how in Arizona you had the ballot measure on abortion rights. We had your race.
Yeah.
And we had the presidential.
Yeah.
So we know there were voters who went in. They voted for the ballot measure. They said, I want abortion rights protected in Arizona. I want to vote for Ruben Gallego. And then I'm going to vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And you've talked a lot about how you took the time to really speak to those Trump supporting voters.
Yeah.
We've also spent a lot of time trying to understand how to talk to those voters about abortion.
Mm-hmm.
I would love for you to talk a little bit about why you think those voters were comfortable voting for you on abortion, the ballot measure, and then Trump. And you really leaned into abortion.
Mm-hmm.
So I frankly think that was a big reason why you were able to persuade some of those soft conservatives or ticket splitters who cared about abortion rights, but also were worried about the economy. Can you talk about how you talked to them?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that you have to kind of wrap your mind around is also to accept that that's actually not weird, right? I think for us, like political people and like these people that are kind of grown and built in the Beltway, they're like, oh, that voter can't exist, right? And I think that's like a very conceited point of view. It's a and it's what stops you really from being able to connect to these voters, because if you have that point of view, like that voter, there's no way there's a voter that's both pro-choice, pro-Trump, pro-Gallego, and pro-working class, right? You have to really put that aside, because most voters are very nuanced, and they have positions that, to the political person from DC is like, oh, that doesn't make sense. But more likely, they're probably pretty much in tune where the rest of the country is. And I think the one thing that we did correctly is that we accepted that there are people that are going to have varying positions, and we weren't afraid to talk to them. So we weren't afraid to talk to the pro-choice, moderate Republican / Latino who was worried about the economy, and we didn't put it out of the realm of possibilities that they may end up doing that kind of voter choice, right? And we didn't talk them down. We talked to them like they're human beings, right? And we talked to them about, like, on the ballot is a right to enshrine abortion in the state constitution. Make sure to vote for that. We want to make sure also that you have control over your economic future. Costs are too high, everything else like that. We mixed the messages because that's what was going on in their world. That's how they're
experiencing it.
Sure, that's what they were worried
about.
They're
not like thinking about these things in silos.
No, and that's how they were worried about it. So we were the campaign that kind of mixed the message to the point where they were able to really grasp who I am for all the stuff they were worried about at that point, right? And so I think there was some people that may focus just on choice and didn't do as well, or some people that just focused on the economic issues, these are Democrats talking about, and didn't do as well. But I think the campaigns that could kind of put those worlds together did better, because that's how these people, that's what they were worried about, right? That's right, exactly.
Especially in Arizona.
Especially in Arizona, 100% in Arizona. And allowing the voter to have that type of kind of diversity in thought and not looking down upon them makes a big difference.
So I think your election is the blueprint. It's a case study for how, as we look at 2025 and 2026, candidates should be thinking about and talking to voters about abortion rights. I keep getting asked, is it still salient this many years after Dobbs? And I'm like, yeah, it's one of the top issues in every major race we're looking at right now in just a month, right? What do you think about, I have to ask you this, what do you think about the arguments we've heard from some in the political class that we should moderate on abortion, or we should be running pro-life Democrats in red states? I have my thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts.
I mean, look, I'll be honest, like in some places, if we can get a Democrat that's better than not, then sure. But there's always varying degrees of what we're willing to accept. I think there are places where you can have a pro-choice Democrat running in a red state and winning.
Like Kentucky.
Like Kansas passed a pro-choice
That's
right? The question is, like, what are the other issues that are going on in people's lives? I think it's very easy to sometimes just narrow it to one thing, but maybe we should really actually do a real deep dive and figure out what else is going on in people's lives there. And maybe what they want is a pro-choice candidate who is really, pro-farm, pro-labor, pro-something else, and not just kind of take the easy route out. I'm not saying that the answer will always be the same, but at least actually explore. I think that we kind of just go to the easy things that are easy pickings, and this is kind of goes back to the voter, right? We automatically assume red state, the only way we can really attract them is we have to be, anti-choice. That may not be the case. Like, why not explore everything else? Maybe they can have a pro-choice candidate running and winning, but that also believes in strong labor or economic issues or whatever it could be. In some cases, it could be just as simple as hunting, right? I'll give you a good example: Alaska.
Yeah,
Alaska is a very red state. The people that win and run in Alaska also happen to be usually very pro-choice, right? But they also have a very different political stance than a lot of Democrats, right? They're pro-hunting. Well, I'm pro-hunter, but there's some Democrats are anti-hunting, right? Maybe they're not great on oil rights, oil leasing, stuff like that, and Democrats maybe don't want to engage in that. But there is a candidate that has one like that. For example, Mary Patolo won statewide a couple of years ago, and she was absolutely pro-choice, but at the same time was not necessarily good on other issues.
And I think, some of the red states, like you mentioned Kansas, that has a Democratic governor, but is considered a red state. Ohio, Missouri, pass ballot measures.
Yep.
So I feel like there's a pathway for Democrats running statewide in those states to do what you did, which is talk about abortion and all the other issues that are germane to the day-to-day lives of the citizens of those states.
But you also have to be willing and ready to talk about it, which is, I think that's the other. That's a lot of times we just kind of want to just blow past it, right?
Yes.
Not have conversations with people. And I think a lot of times, some Democrats just aren't willing to even have conversations with quote unquote red voters on any issue.
Where they may have a disagreement.
Right. Versus I'm not afraid to have
Right.
discussions with Arizona voters, Democrats, Republicans, or Independents, even though we're going to have a disagreement. At least they know where I am. And I think a lot of times we just try to hammer home our issue instead of trying to actually have conversations with the voters. And the voters deserve that. Doesn't matter, again, whether they're Republican or not, they still get to vote. So you might as well try to have that conversation with them.
So I think the way that we expand the tent is by talking to Republican and independent voters who are with us on abortion rights and reproductive freedom, and then work to expand our conversations with them and attract them to our party as opposed to running more conservative Democrats, have the frank conversations about the policy issues we know the majority of Americans care about, reproductive freedom being one of them, but school, education being another one. There's so many issues. The Democrats are popular. The Democrats have enshrined that voters do care about, but maybe we're not talking frankly enough to Republicans, which it feels like you did, and your examples point to.
I can't speak for everybody else, but in Arizona, we have 315,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats, right?
And you had to talk to them.
As an issue of survival, right?
Yeah.
You got to talk. Now, the other thing is, Arizona is not it sounds weird to say this, but it's not as polarized state as other people think it is.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that, I have lots of Republican friends. Right, I have lots of Republican friends that we don't see eye on eye, but I still consider friends. They come to my house. They have dinner with my family. I go to their house. I go to their Christmas parties. They come to my Christmas parties. I go to their kids' birthday parties. They go to my kids' birthday parties. And because of that, I think it's easier for Arizona Democrats to have conversations politically that maybe are difficult in other states because this is what we live every day, right? And in terms of using talking about choice as kind of the gateway to get into a conversation, I think that's entirely 100% possible. I think for me and my experience but kind of reaching out to your moderate Republican woman in Arizona, who is the moderate Republican woman in Arizona is very, very pro-choice.
That's right. Historically,
right?
Yes. Goldwater Republicans.
100%, right? One of the Goldwaters actually started Planned Parenthood Arizona, for example. But that was the way to start the conversation. But they also cared about security.
Right.
They also cared about border security. They also cared about police and policing. But that conversation gets very difficult for some Democrats because, for example, I'm for border security and immigration reform. I'm for, police reform, but also I'm against defunding the police. And so I was able to go have a conversation with these moderate Republican women saying, you and I agree on choice. Women should have full control over her body. And I think that you should have, security, personal family security. I think a lot of Democrats seem to think that we have to have 100% alignment on every issue, or else we can't go have conversations with people. And I think that's not how you're gonna have the big tent. You have to have these conversations, or else the tent keeps getting smaller and smaller.
Can you? Do we have? I know we're running out of time because we got to get you to your kid.
Thank you.
But But if you have a few minutes, let's talk about the shutdown. Because we're in it right now.
We are in it.
And you are fighting. And right before we started recording, we were talking about our good friend, Adelita Grijalva, who has been elected by the state and has not been sworn in.
Right.
Talk to me about your votes on the shutdown and how you're approaching this. And
well, look, nobody wants a shutdown. It's awful, right? It's an awful situation to be put in.
Absolutely.
But the other awful situation is right now when things are so damn expensive, increasing the insurance premiums on 24 million Americans. That's just the people on the ACA. It doesn't count the repercussion that happens after that, right?
Right.
4 million people will just lose their health insurance over time. In Arizona, average family of 4, their insurance premiums are going to jump another $4,000, right? You can't afford that. Unconscionable, right? You're for families, that's basically them just dropping their insurance altogether. And we have till November 1st really to make these decisions. I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want to be shutting down the government, but I also do not want to kick people off their health care or raise their premiums. And my Republican colleagues have an option. The option is very, very simple. Come with us. We can negotiate. There's always room to negotiate on the ACA. We get that. Like, hey, it's divided government. But the option is not going to be an easy option for them where I'm just going to let you cut 24 million people from their healthcare, affordable healthcare, right? We're going to have a fight. And hopefully that we could come to a compromise where we both get what we want. But the idea that I'm just going to go quietly into tonight and let 24 million Americans have their health insurance raised overnight, plus everyone else beyond that ends up being the repercussions of it. If they think they're going to get an easy vote from me, it's not going to happen.
Well, I appreciate you standing up for all of our families.
Thank you.
I appreciate you standing up for healthcare. The fight around the ACA is a reproductive freedom fight as well, as was the Medicare defunding fight. We had, I got to spend some time with you in Arizona over the summer.
I know. God, that was summer. Wow.
That was not that long ago.
No, it was not.
It feels like 500 years ago.
It just does, yeah.
But I'm looking forward to being back in Arizona with you. I'm so grateful for your leadership on this issue. It's great to have a new dad in Congress to talk to you about these issues.
Thank you.
When do you think we can potentially pass paid leave?
I think next time there's a trifecta, obviously you guys are nonpartisan, but as Democrats, if we hit the trifecta, what we've seen the Republicans do, they basically go around the filibuster whenever it's convenient to them. That's when you go and do stuff like that.
And we codify a federal right to abortion.
100%. Yep.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
So please join us by texting POD to 59791. Like, follow, subscribe, wherever you find your podcasts. It's great to be with you today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Yep.